There's been a lot of conversations on TikTok about toxic spirituality, new age spirituality, dangerous ideologies, and I want to make my video on that, kind of addressing those different topics because it is an important thing to address here. And I think it's really important that everyone stays informed and everyone practices discernment. But the thing about spirituality is that a lot of people seem to think that this is like a lifestyle, like a trend, like and like when I say lifestyle, I'm talking about. I mean, it is a lifestyle, like an actual fundamentals of spiritual path is for you to integrate that into your lifestyle and enhance your reality, in essence. But people make this their personality. People really make this like a badge for their ego, and then people start performing. People start really like creating an aesthetic and persona and an image, like it's an act. It's all performative. So that makes it phony, right? Which is like the opposite of what spirituality is, because the point of spirituality is for one to really ultimately reach the state of actual self actualization. And it's not even enlightenment, right? We hear that term a lot because what really is enlightenment, right? As human beings, what really is enlightenment that we're supposed to reach, right? Because then the state of enlightenment gives you, in a way, like the state of finality. But as souls, our journey is infinite. Energy is infinite, and we go on. Our journey goes on. So there is no destination that we're supposed to reach here, and every individual on their own journey has their own journey to follow. So this is not a race. There is no certain thing they have to reach, right? Everyone is doing their own thing, and this is why everyone has to really like come back home to themselves when it comes to like being on this path of spirituality, instead of trying to follow everyone else's footsteps and trying to like learn as much as possible to like expand their knowledge and confusing that for spirituality, because spirituality is not knowledge. Spirituality is not about like learning these things. Like it's not even about like learning how to use tools, like occult. This is not about like getting into occultism or like using metaphysical tools, divination. Like these are not spirituality. Like they can be a part of your spiritual practice. They can be a part of your spiritual rituals. Like there are different ways that people can practice their spirituality. But what I'm saying is that the usage of tools or even consumption of knowledge and like reading books, these are not like the immediate manifestations of spirituality. Those are acts and tools that people can integrate into their own daily life and routine to help themselves on their journey of being spiritual. But if your focus of spiritual journey is being spiritual, then like you can already kind of flag that as like a red flag. You can already know like that's not like the authentic way of going about this, because when you're trying to become something, you're already doing this with the wrong intentions. Now, if you want to be more you, right? If you make this journey about you and yourself, in which you really put your intention about like unlearning all these conditioning, especially all this indoctrinated knowledge, all these things that society told you who you are, which you're not. So this is the process of you really getting to know yourself on an intimate level and understanding yourself and understanding other people, understanding the world around you in a whole different way. Like, and then amidst the process of that, you can like integrate different things. Like, so you see how if your goal is to getting closer to yourself, then you automatically start adapting to integration or elevation and transformation, because your intention is with yourself, and that also has comes with a lot of dark nights of the soul, by the way. This is about like doing a lot of inner work, facing yourself, facing your darkness, sitting with yourself, especially during those most uncomfortable moments. So the way that you become spiritual is by you sitting with yourself and by looking at yourself in the mirror. Becoming spiritual isn't like being something that you're not. This is actually really about you being more of yourself. And this is why like self-accountability work is so important. This is why trying to meet certain standards for aesthetics is really meaningless when it comes to the state of like self-actualization. Because it's really about planting seeds and really watering the soil, cultivating your fundamentals in your roots. Working with the roots is the core of spiritual work, right? It's very different from religion, and people really confuse it. And this is why a lot of people are turning into like people are turning to like cult mindsets, and a lot of people start like looking up to the certain maybe creators on social media or preachers or teachers, and because they preach certain things, which there's nothing inherently wrong with, you know, appreciating knowledge that certain people share, and I think there's value in appreciating and admiring people and the messages they have to share, but you have to still be able to practice your discernment and filter out what doesn't resonate with you, because the truth, right? There's this obsession with the truth, right? Like when for people who are on this journey of spirituality, this is like the first like hole that they fall into, is that they're searching for the truth, right? And this is where a lot of people fall into a toxic mindset, is that, well, let's get to the toxic mindset in a little bit, but a lot of people start getting confused because they're so desperate to search for the truth, especially in the beginning of their spiritual journeys. A lot of people, or a lot of things that they had learned in their entire life start being what's the word I'm looking for? Disentangled, disintegrated. So there's a lot of confusion happening here, right? Because there's this whole side of the world that they're being open to, they're awakening to, and then there's this other side of life that they're still, they still belong to, right? Like they call it the matrix, the physical reality, and then this whole new realm that they're being awakened to, right? And so people are being confused about, okay, what is the truth, right? And then these people start going on social media and they start consuming all these things, these different ideologies, different methods of like reaching like the state of truth. And again, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but those things that other people preach to you about are not necessarily the absolute truth. Again, right? This is the point that I made in the very beginning of this video. Your truth is about your journey. Everybody has their own journey they're walking on, and what works for them may not work for you, and vice versa. What's yours to find is on your path. Those are your treasures to find and honor and celebrate. So that means that the truth that you're searching ultimately is within you. And you're not going to find that by continuing to consume knowledge. This truth, this treasure, and it's not even like a thing that you have to find, right? It's ultimately like a state of feeling, the state of awareness, acknowledgement of your existence on a really quintessential level, that this is something that it is obtained through your continuous search for self and continuous search for more layers that you can uncover, and that takes a process. This is not something you suddenly see overnight. This is a process, a journey that you have to allow yourself to really commit to, but without really committing to it, because again, it's a lifestyle. It is life, Life. This is life. So this is not a race, right? So when it becomes dangerous is when you separate yourself from yourself, when you start associating with certain messages that you see online, when you start like seeing the world as a separate thing from yourself, meaning that you're trying to escape your reality and you're trying to escape yourself. You're trying to become something that you're not because you think that you have to be a certain way to be spiritual. That you, for example, right? There's a lot of talks about and glamorization of love and light, that you have to be loving, you have to be accepting, you have to be forgiving, all these good things, right? A lot of things are romanticized in the spiritual community. And this is also where a lot of illusions happen, right? For example, these people preaching about love and light and high vibrations and ascension, you can't even, because without doing proper self-work and shadow work and really sitting with yourself through the dark nights of the soul, those concepts and ideologies like love and light, it's useless. And it's only putting that on a pedestal, right? Because what does it really mean to be a loving person? What does it mean to be a high vibrational person? What does that really mean? So a lot of people just take those things as face value. People really believe that you have to be a good person, and a lot of people don't even understand what a good person means. What is actually a good person? What does it mean to be a good person, right? And that's a rhetorical question, because a lot of people actually don't know the answer to that. People think that being nice is being a good person. So are you inherently saying that being a people pleaser is a good person? Because being a nice person means that you're nice to everyone. So what about yourself? Like, are you nice to yourself? Because if you're nice to every single person, at one point, that then you're betraying yourself, because you care more about being nice, that you don't really honor your truth, right? So this type of thinking, where you're trying to be something that you're not, creates a lot of separation from yourself. This is when it becomes toxic, because you're not meeting yourself and your needs. You're not serving yourself. You're, once again, playing an act. You're performing for something that you're not, because you want to meet certain standards of spirituality. This is where it becomes dangerous. And especially if you have a history of, like, mental illnesses, or whatever it is, like you have low self-esteem, right? Because you're trying to obtain a new mask of spirituality to follow the trend, or to really keep up with everybody else around you, you're once again neglecting yourself. You're putting yourself into a deeper hole ultimately. And this is where it becomes toxic. So, guys, like, being a spiritual person means, like, you really, like, don't even worry about the term, right? Don't even worry. I know there's a lot of glamorization on TikTok. Like, really, people, like, show up presenting themselves in a certain way. You also have to remember, you don't know these people in real life, right? So when you keep in mind that a lot of things are glamorized, you have to understand, like, that's phony. That is phony. Your life is meant to be honored and lived with your own truth and with your connection to it. You can't try to escape your reality, but then also try to, like, live up to the standards of being spiritual. That's not what spirituality is. How does that differ from like an actual cult? Like, think about it, right? When you look at these cult people who are involved in the cult, they don't really. There's a lot of they worship something that's outside of them, right? They really believe this thing to be like the absolute truth, right? There's usually like a cult leader, but usually they follow a certain philosophy or mindset, which they believe to be the superior mindset above everyone else, and they really, like, dedicate themselves to this thing, right? But they're not really connected to themselves. So if we were to apply a specific context, right, let's say that it's about the love and light community, right? So if you believe that you have to be, like, embodying love and light by acting a certain way, right? So you're acting in ways that are not actually authentic to you. You're always trying to be the bigger person, so you hold back a lot, that you act in ways that are not natural to you, that you have to, like, present yourself in a certain way. Maybe you're like, you're now you worry more about, like, the aesthetics and, like, external beauty more than, like, how you are engaging with yourself internally. Those are ways that you're actually neglecting yourself and betraying yourself. Does that make sense? Right? So that is you separating yourself from yourself, and that's how you recognize like, phony spirituality. And it's really easy to fall into that when you're already struggling with a lot, struggling with your reality, because people are always naturally looking for ways to escape pain, right? So, I mean, whether it's with spirituality or even, like, even drug addiction, right? It's like with anything, right? Like, even with substances like alcohol, people are bound to rely on something outside of them to avoid pain, right? And that's exactly what people are doing with spirituality too. They're putting on an act. They're holding on to something to avoid their reality in front of them, and they're acting in ways that are not authentic to them. And this is putting them into a deeper hole. And for most cases, people that are on the outside don't recognize that. This is why you, as a viewer, when you're consuming this type of content, you have to always keep in mind to not glamorize or romanticize anybody, right? Because even myself as a shaman, which inherently what I do in my practice is all spiritual work, my entire life is actually, like, even speaking about myself, I don't live in the normal way. I have never lived in the normal way, right? And even though, yes, I serve as the bridge between different realms, and I communicate with spirits and just different entities, beyond the physical level, I have an actual physical life, right? That it is reality, that the reality is reality. My life is not like suddenly actually better because of spirituality. I still have a reality. I, as a human, am not a perfect person, but I know for sure that I am a self-accountable person, self-aware person, that I will always check myself, but my life itself is not perfect. Being spiritual doesn't make you a better person or superior person. It might make you a better person to yourself, because why? You're always improving yourself, you're checking yourself, you're asking the right questions, you're sitting with yourself, you're allowing yourself to process all the things that come to you naturally without forcing yourself to feel things that you don't feel. So when you're allowing yourself to be authentic, then you become better. But that doesn't mean that your reality suddenly, well, okay, so when you're better, right, you naturally gather more power to like change your reality as well. So the change you see in your external reality, in your reality, it is a result of you changing yourself. The transformation you see in the outside is the result of you transforming yourself from within. So there's that effect, absolutely. But just because you're spiritual, it doesn't necessarily like make you like the superior person, because once again, this is not a title that you earn, right? I'm speaking about spirituality. I'm not talking about shaman, because that is a very specific role. So I'm talking about spiritual, right? Because for me, my duty as a shaman, well, I have many duties, but one of the things that I have to is that I have to check myself consistently, because I am this person that serves people around me. I have a responsibility to continue to be the example for people. So for me, at my core of my practice, I have to constantly check myself. And I'm just speaking for myself, by the way. I'm not speaking for every other shaman out there, because this is what I mean. You have to see every single person for who they are, beyond their titles, beyond their associations, beyond their presentation of themselves, beyond their names. Spirituality is not a badge, okay? Just because someone claims himself as a spiritual person, or whatever label that they associate themselves with, right? Like, separate those things from the person. Like, judge that person for their character. You know, and then I'm sure I'll talk about this in another video maybe, but people can be multiple things at the same time. This means that someone can be a psychic, and being a psychic doesn't necessarily make someone a spiritual person, by the way. Being spiritual is like its own thing, but it's really about the person's character. You might even meet spiritual people who don't even know that they're spiritual, but you can tell that they're spiritual, that you can tell that they're connected with the divine, that they are humble. Like, these are real spiritual people. You don't have to know that you're a spirit. This is not like something that you carry. Like, this is not a sticker, guys. Like, true spirituality is the world that you harness and you harvest and you cultivate within you. This is a connection to yourself. This is the way that you view yourself, and you treat yourself, and hence you treat other people around you. Spirituality should be, your spirituality, your level of spirituality should be reflected in your character, not like your aesthetics, not your performance. People think that spiritual people have to act a certain way. This is where people get confused, right? So if you're watching this, I'm sure that you are maybe curious, you're maybe just getting started, or maybe you are on a spiritual journey, you see yourself as a spiritual person, maybe you want to know more, you're learning, or you're just watching for whatever reason. But I'm saying, don't revolve your life around spirituality. Be yourself and face the reality of your life. Life is hard. Life is hard. And if you seek spirituality to escape your reality, I guarantee you that's not the right way to go about it. Now, can diving into spirituality, can that enhance your perception of your reality? Can that enhance the way that you create your life? Absolutely. But that's a natural effect of you working on yourself. It's not like something that you create outside of you. Because remember, the life you create starts with you. So without that awareness, and without the full responsibility of that awareness and of the power that you have, because remember, this is your power. Just keep in mind that your journey is your personal journey, and you don't have to compare yourself or your journey or your life to other people. just make sure that you really make this about yourself, bettering yourself, making the best decisions for yourself, and allowing yourself to just be yourself and get lost. This is not about being a good person in the objective sense. This is about being a good person in the way that you believe is a good person. Again, this is really, there's a lot of rhetorical questions, and I'm sure like in my future videos I'll talk about different topics, helping you understand certain things that will aid you on your self-help journey and self-love journey. But ultimately, this is about you focusing on your relationship with yourself and maybe with the higher power, if that is your belief. If that is your belief, right? If you believe the creator, creation, spirit guides, that's up to you. That's your personal belief. Again, this is about you and your relationship with yourself. But just know that being a spiritual person, this is not a personality trait, okay? This is really about the way that you live your life, the way that you stay open to different possibilities, and that you're always willing to expand your mind and expand your sight. And the way that you expand yourself and transform yourself is by your action, in your perception, and your intentions. And also, very important, the way that you treat other people as well, okay? That means you're not putting yourself on a pedestal and anybody else on a pedestal. So hopefully this kind of gives you like a really elementary level of explanation on what true spirituality is. And have fun with your journey, guys. It's really about just having fun in your playground. In the playground called life.